Well, you know, we met, and Stan is a very gracious individual. Was a great individual, and very cordial meeting, very detailed. Stan was a very detailed individual, so he got into detailed questions. He talked a lot about the culture and values of the company and of the community, and wanted to know a lot about, obviously, my background. But we had a very frank, open discussion. Well, from day one, obviously, I was not from this industry. So Stan did a lot to help me understand the industry. Stan was a great teacher. He, as a problem came up, he would challenge me to think about, you know, have you thought about this or have you thought about that? And it was kind of like two ends of the spectrum. And then you had all the possibilities in between. And he never once told me, this is what I want you to do. He always allowed me the opportunity to think through it myself, to work through it, to work with the team, and come up with the right answer. And so it was a great education, great experience, great development for myself, you know, to step into the role to replace Stan as, you know, as the president, and then as the CEO, and then as chairman of the board.
I first met Stan Howe in February 1992 in an interview when Jack Michaels was interviewing me for a senior vice president type of position with the corporation, and Stan Howe was chief executive officer and chairman of the board at that point in time. And so I went into Stan's office and sat down, and it was a typical sort of experience with Stan. Very profound, deep questions. And I met an individual that was very much committed to this corporation, H&I, Pond Industries at the time, and the community. Was very impressed with Stan Howe the first time I met him. Stan Howe had a profound impact on H&I, then known as Pond Industries. He was really what we would classify as the builder of the corporation. I think Max, Stanley, Clem Hansen, Wood Miller were the founders. Stan Howe was the 23rd member, I believe, hired, and really was the brains and the energy and the visionary behind the growth and development of this corporation. So he had a profound impact on this corporation, and likewise had a real heart and sense of Muscatine. Stan very much believed in investing in the community where our members worked and lived, and was a quiet sort of leader, but a profound leader with both his time, his ideas, and Stan and Helen's money to really make this a much better community today than it ever was when I started some 25 years ago.
Stan made all the difference at the college. Both he and Helen love the community, and are real proponents of education, and have shown their support throughout the state at the university levels. And I think Stan and I kind of came together, and he believed very much in the community college mission. And I think he saw the MCC as a real asset for the community, a real economic driver for the community, and also saw it as an opportunity to work with training departments in the manufacturing community too. There was a time that I think industry had a hard time finding, for shift workers, places to deal with preschool programs. And we were full at the time, and actually we existed in a double-wide trailer at one time, and then sort of a smaller facility on campus. And we approached Stan. Stan basically supported the growth of the Learning Tree Preschool, not only from a program standpoint, but also from a facility standpoint. So that was one major thing that happened. Another major project here was the Manufacturing Technology Center. And Stan's leadership in working with the area manufacturers made all the difference there. And so we had broad community support for our manufacturing program, and that ended up with rededication of a building and a reworking of a building here on campus. A major project for us. and also kind of a re-endorsement of us being corporate trainers of choice for the manufacturers of Greater Muscatine.
I'm Bujera Bokshi, and I'm originally from Kosovo. I attended MCC during the years of 2006 to 2008. I did meet Mr. Howe in these Rotary meetings every Monday that I would attend. And I knew I wanted to stay here for college, and I also knew that my parents couldn't afford to pay for an American education, so I was looking for someone who could help me sponsor and be able to stay here for college. And someone suggested I go say hi to Mr. Howe. Being 17 at that time, I was kind of shy and my English wasn't as good, so I decided, you know what, I'm too shy to go say hi in person, I'm going to write a letter. So I wrote a letter and I included me and my friend Erza in the letter, and I just kind of sent it. I had heard that both Mr. and Mrs. Howe are very generous and are very willing to help people who want to go through education, who want a better education. So I thought, you know what, I might as well write something. I never knew what answer I would get back. I thought I wouldn't get anything because they didn't know me. Why would they even, write me back? Sure enough, it was the day of my prom. I was getting my nails done. My host mom picked me up and she said, "Look what's in the mail, what came in the mail?" And it was a letter from Mr. and Mrs. Howe. That's when I found out that they were willing to help me and my friend Erza to attend MCC. And I don't know why and how I got so lucky to end up meeting Mr. and Mrs. Howe and every other person here in town, but I feel like they are one of the biggest parts of my life, and I feel like I am who I am today because of them. A big part of their influence is a result of where I am today, and I am very, very fortunate to, when I'm having a rough day, to be able to wake up, oh, you know what, I can always call Mrs. Howe.
Stan had a very, very dry sense of humor. And there were things sometimes he would say to you, and you would have to really think hard, is he really yanking my chain or what's he doing?
Stan was always enjoyable for me to talk to. He's a quiet man, very intellectual, very bright, would ask profound questions that you had to stop and think about. Likewise, he had a very dry sense of humor, very humble individual, and so every time I would talk to Stan, I came away with a bit of a smile, and generally, often I would say, "Stan, you know what, I need to think about that before I get back with you." So Stan made me think, and Stan made me frequently smile.
I thought he was very funny, and we had a connection where I got his jokes, and we didn't have to technically, we didn't have to laugh it out loud, but he would always say, Mr. Howe would say, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you passing classes?" I'm like, "Mr. Howe, I'm trying to get all A's here." He goes, "It's okay, just pass."
It's hard for me to separate Stan and Helen a lot because I think they had such strong shared values. And I take that right back to their belief in community, their belief in education, and their belief in access.
It was, when I went back, was our youngest son was a junior in high school. So it was quite a different experience than we would have had if we'd gone back to campus as a 20-year-old.
Oh, well, that was fun to watch her being through as much torment as I did. I was in high school at the time, and so, for instance, she would be here at MCC and taking a finance class, and how she would get totally overwhelmed by it. But luckily, my brother is a professor of finance, and so he was able to carry her a few rounds so she could get over the hump and get into the cycle of being a student once again. But yeah, it was nice to see her develop an appreciation for how school is tough.
And I loved it, except that the first course that we had was one that it was a business course that I didn't understand the first, second, or third word in the book, and I was a little desperate. But fortunately, my niece, Barbara Collins, was in class with me, and our eldest son was teaching that same course at Boone at the junior college there. So we contacted him, and he sent all his notes, his lecture notes, and we aced the class. I have no idea what was in it, but at the time I got by. And after that was out of the way, it was easy.
Modest, polite, and trusting. And the trusting is unique. She has this optimism to her where she will meet someone first impression and she'll immediately trust them, but yet she's not gullible and naive. I mean, she can look right through you, so that you can't get anything past her. So very trusting.
And there were stories of having to go down after a flood and wipe off the steel that they were going to have to use in production, and all the families turned out, including Helen. And it was just she was a terrific supporter.
Stan and Helen were fortunate, and Stan would be the first to say he was fortunate in his choices in life, and it served him very, very well, financially and otherwise. As easy as it would be for them to write a check, what I appreciated more than anything else is their personal commitment. If there was an event here at the college, be it a fine arts event, if it was an open house, if we were having a grand opening of student housing, if it was a business after hours, or just an informal arts event, many times you'd see Stan and Helen here. So, you know, they showed their support of the college with a personal time investment.
Stan frequently spoke of Helen in a very fond way. It was clear to me early on that Stan and Helen were a team, and that Helen was the supporter and the encourager behind Stan. And he trusted her judgment a lot and would share with her, and I think would bounce things off her. And so she was significantly influential in Stan's career and his success here in Muscatine at HNI.
They applied not only the monetary, but the other resources that they possessed, you know, to move things along. And Stan, if you think about Stan and Helen, what they did for the community, they didn't do it by themselves. They worked with others to get it done.
And it's how you really breed success in any organization that you touch. If people can believe in the direction you're going and believe you don't have an ulterior motive, they'll move the world for you.
Stan was probably one of the ones from a community standpoint that made all the difference in Muscatine. For years and years and years, the community had sort of turned its back on the river. And through a lot of the Development Corp and Chamber initiatives, I think Stan sort of coaxed us into seeing the advantage of the river as an asset. And to be honest with you, I think some of those projects were sort of the precursors of some of the things that's happening downtown now. The new Merrill Hotel and the conferencing center, those are all the sort of the byproducts of some of those earlier projects that cleaned up the riverfront, that made it a friendly place to visit, bike trails and public spaces along the riverfront.
They have incredible respect for this town, and it really is deserved. This town, just at this very moment, all the action that's going on in this town, the renaissance that went over when we went from lumber to buttons and clamming to retreading tires and office furniture in the next direction. Well, that's why the investment is going into the town now on all facets, because this town has the unique ability to really take the ball and take it to the next level.
He cared for his family, his wife, his loves, and his town, and everything, and the people in it. I've heard stories of his stopping when going through the factory every day, and he was going home from work and stopping and visiting with the people that were working there. And he knew everybody by name, and he knew to ask whether their wife or daughter was feeling better that day. So they felt like they were a group.
He just felt strongly about people, about their values, and helped them to create the culture and to make life better for everybody.
Stan and Helen have always had a great appreciation for education. They both come from backgrounds, families of, I would call it, humble means, and both had strong intellect And through education and through opportunity, Stan excelled, thrived even. And as a result of that, and Helen likewise, by the way, also finished up her bachelor's degree and is a very active mind, a very bright individual, well-read, well-traveled, that found life to be, I think, a whole lot more richer because of her education. As a result of their academic pursuits and their academic success and then their success in life, they both have a profound sort of desire to help others in the local community with their education. And Muscatine Community College was a home base, hometown place to help others advance their life and improve their life through education in very practical, applied ways that both benefited the community, benefited the company, but also contributed to our society and the welfare, the advancement of human beings.
I want Stan and Helen to get their due in terms of how they've lived their lives. And I mean, it's easy to go online and Google Stan and Helen Howe and to see how much support that they've given to the University of Iowa, to Iowa State, to Iowa Wesleyan in terms of cash donations and supportive programs, but also the time that they've spent on boards and the time they've spent behind the scenes helping develop people and programs.
I think they felt that you needed to have the education to provide you the skills and the values that you're going to use in your life. And so if you look around and see what all they supported, from the many universities they supported, to MCC as well, to the high school, they were both scholars. And from that they became visionaries and became real leaders. And so it was terrific.
I said once that Stan anticipated the future more than anyone else that I knew. He seemed to be, he could live in the now, but he could project his company, his own persona and programs into the future better than anyone I've ever seen.
He taught everybody. He challenged everybody on everything. And it was a great experience because he was opening up your mind, to use it to the best advantage.
Everything I've achieved in life, they're a big part of it. Not just with financial support, but more importantly, the emotional and the love and just the acceptance of a complete stranger out of nowhere, and I hope that I made them proud.
Yeah, Stan and Helen are great examples of great citizens of Muscatine. Humble, bright, successful people that care a lot about the local community, the people that live here and the people that work here, and did all they could to give back to help advance the community and help advance the lives of the people who live in the community.
Integrity is one of those traits which is incredibly hard to get and to maintain. I mean, every day there's some temptation trying to pull you away from being who you really should be. And yet he was able to do it for 92 years. And that is something that most of us should envy.